Family time is about your issues and your relationships, your at home family and your community family, and your global family. Family time is produced by Family Life Ministries, and our aim is to enable healthy families, which will lead to healthy nations. Stay with us, listen in, and please join in. My name is Halcyon Reid. There's a high and increasing proportion of single parent families in Jamaica. This has raised concerns about the potential impact of single parent families on the social and emotional development of children. Angelica Dalrymple and Kevin Gordon are our guests today, and we'll be exploring this topic with them. But before we speak with them, here's what we want you to do. Tell us, as the male with a single mother, how did having a father figure help you in your development? You know those stories that demonstrate how important it was for you to have a man to relate to? Those instances where mom was just not equipped to deal with the male in you? WhatsApp your text and voice notes. Make sure they're no longer than 30 seconds to 876-997-3125, or you may post on the Love 101 Facebook page or call the studio lines at 876-968-8327 or 968-8328 to participate. And throughout the program, we'll share what you share. We'll be right back.
Life comes at you fast and it can hit hard. Apply for the Credit Union Prepaid MasterCard from CNWJ with chip and PIN protection. Need a card with a personal line of credit for emergencies? We have that. Need a card you can use to shop online for that must-have item? We have that. The community and workers of Jamaica Prepaid MasterCard. All the convenience of a MasterCard. Discover the benefits of belonging.
Now more than ever, Protex reminds you to wash your hands. A 40-second hand wash with soap could help prevent COVID-19. Look for Protex at your nearest store.
Yo, my G.
You see my number?
Well, duh.
Nah, man, me just switch my number to Flow. And got 30 days of unlimited data to do everything, plus a free LTE SIM.
30 days unlimited everything?
Yeah, man, plus
There's more.
after 30 days, I can activate any plan to continue enjoying unlimited YouTube, social, calls, and text to any network.
We need all of that too.
Yeah, you need to switch to Flow and keep your number. Visit your nearest Flow store today. Conditions apply.
Bring the family back. Bring the family back. Bring it back together.
Welcome back to Family Time on Love 101. Our topic today is Mother Can't Father Me. And as my guest, and I discussed this today, we want to know, as the male with a single mother, how did having a father figure help in your development? WhatsApp your text and voice notes. Make sure they're no longer than 30 seconds to 876-997-3125, or you may post on the Love 101 Facebook page or call the studio lines at 876-968-8327 or 968-8328 to participate. And throughout the program, we'll share your thoughts. With us this evening is Angelica Dalrymple. She's an associate applied psychologist and guidance counselor in education. She represents Jamaica, the Jamaica Association of Guidance Counselors in Education in the capacity of Chair of Education Committee. And Kevin Gordon, a married man with a son, is a business education teacher for almost 20 years who loves to sing, and he's a percussionist. He is from a single mother home. So good evening to my guest.
Good evening.
All right, how are you today?
Quite good.
Okay, good.
Good evening to you,
What's up?
Halcyon.
Hi.
I'm great.
Okay, so we're happy to have you, and we're ready to delve right into the discussion. All right, so Kevin, let's start with you. Tell us your story.
Yeah, well, good evening, listeners and everybody. Thanks for having me. Well, my story. Thank God I have a very, very, very good mother. She did more than she went beyond the call of duty sacrificial, loving, caring, and all of that. So in no way did she fail as a mother. Not even in a little ounce did she fail. Right? So I had the support of a good mother. I grew with a sister, so there's three of us, me, my sister, and my mother. My sister is older, a little older, and we had good family. The extended family was very supportive in terms of uncles and aunts. We were
Mm-hmm.
close, and we visited each other on holidays. We kept in touch and so on. So even those overseas. So thank God I had a good extended family in terms of support. Um, the joys, it was full of a lot of joy because my mother, as I said, was very supportive. Was a disciplinarian, very strong disciplinarian. Grew us in the church, which is good, and I'll get to that.
I think there's a little change with your internet. I'm not hearing you clearly. Are you still there with us? All right. So, Angelica, do you want to just, chip in right now until Kevin sorts out his internet?
Yes, that's fine.
Yes.
I was listening to Kevin and I heard what he said, those few words that he mentioned. He spoke about his sacrificial mom, which is really good. But normally that is not really what happens. So I think that he's very blessed to have had that sacrificial mom and that extended social support. And if we should think about the reasons for, if you want me to go there, the reasons for single parenting, and in this instance we're talking about mothers, although there is a commonality among mothers and fathers, the reasons as it relates to like that divorce, because yes, and then we have death, we have mistrust, especially when it comes from the man. He says, okay, that's not my child, that's a jacket. And then you have the imprisonment. There are some who are in prison, the extramarital relationships, and that's a real tough one on children, because they would have, the parents would have had relationships that afterward they just have to be silent, and they can't even tell the child that that's your dad. So the child, the dad is missing from the home, and the parent will have to take up all that responsibility. So you have the irresponsible sexual behaviors as well. You just have sex. It doesn't really matter until you get a child. You don't even know the name of the father. And we have had situations like that. The mother doesn't even know the name of the father. She probably just know maybe a little name. They call him Chon Chon or John John or something, and that kind of thing. And you have illness. There are some persons who are aged, some men who are aged, and they would start relationship with a younger girl. So when the child is born, and by the time the child gets to a certain age, even before adolescence, they have deteriorated in age and in health and disabilities. So sometimes they have to be taken out of home for different reasons. You have insanity. That's one a lot of people don't pay attention to. There are some fathers who become insane and can't stay in the home at all. They're on the streets. Have you ever considered those fathers out there? Some of them have children. You have the desertion, and then you have vindictiveness. Some mothers are very vindictive. I didn't really want this man. All I wanted was a child. So they just say, get out of my life, get out of my child's life, that kind of thing. And you have the unforgiveness. And there may be many others, but the research kind of push some of these at the forefront.
Right. Yeah, definitely. Well said. All right. So I'm hoping that Kevin will come back on soon. But in the meantime, we always talk about how not having a male figure in the home affects boys especially. But do you have any information on how that may affect girls as well?
There's a similarity, but for the boys, there is a father absence hypothesis that I think it's Hammer and Turner, they're related to in their research, right? It speaks about the boys especially. It says boys need a regular they need a regular ongoing relationship with their fathers, because this is to develop a valued sense of masculinity, and that will help them to be able to have internal control of behaviors. Also, the appropriate development of the conscience, where they know right from wrong and that kind of thing. So the role model of the father is a really strong one. Not that the mother isn't, but as it relates to certain things. And then boys, as it relates to their fathers being there, they tend to gravitate to education more than those who just grew with their mothers alone. And the mothers, really, they do a very good job. We are not saying that, but we are saying those without their fathers, they really have some challenges. As with the girls without the fathers, they are more tending towards teenage pregnancy and those kind of behaviors, because they have the mother nurturing. And as we say, they are off-field, because innately children were born with the DNA of mother and father. So they need both to nurture, both to support, to give them this balance. So when they do not have this balance, it's like a tank with just half. And that half depletes gradually in many cases. And also it depends on the child, because sometimes a child, just like we see a glass, it is half, and some say it's half full, some say it's half empty. Some children look at it that way. I have half, and I look at it as half full. Thanks God for my mother. I'm going to be obedient to my mother. I'm going to do this for my mother. I'm going to do this, and when I grow up, I'm going to do that. The others will just say, oh, where's my daddy? I want my father, that kind of thing. So emotionally, you find that there is a difference depending on the child, depending on the child's resilience, depending on even the mother, how the mother responds to it and all of that. So we know that there's a plethora of situations. So we are not here beating down on mothers in the context that mothers have done their best, but they are challenges that will allow the mother not to actually do what the father would have done. And that child cannot really get the full sense of parent without a father, either without a mother. Even if it's death, take away the father. It doesn't matter what took the father away. As long as the father is not there, there's a sort of imbalance. Mother does everything. Family members does everything. They will do everything to put things together. And I'm glad that they can do that, and they will do that. But at the same time, there is a void in the child that is lacking. That DNA void is always lacking.
So since you're in the education system, Angelica, do you see any examples of how this single parent home without the father affects, the education of boys in school,
Well, unfortunately, I am not in a school now with boys, but before I was in a school with boys, and you understand that some behaviors, as you see them, you recognize that there's no real control at home, because we must understand that when the fathers are not there, there is a socio-economic challenge. And the mother on her own, especially if she has more than one, she will have to be finding a job. She will have to be out there working, and sometimes they work late hours. The child is on its own as it relates to boys, and you know that they tend to become idle. The research shows that they tend to become idle. Also, the fact that boys would more gravitate towards their father. They want to have that male feel, they want to feel that masculinity. And it happens too when other boys around them have their fathers. When they see that, they feel less than. They feel like something is happening to them, something is wrong. So you start getting the truancy. You start getting them defiant, not behaving themselves at home, disrespecting their mothers, and the list goes on, if you want to ask me. Yes.
Right. And in terms of the girls, what do you see in terms of education when the father is missing?
As it relates to the girls gravitate in a different way. It doesn't mean that they are not lacking, but most times, whether in a mother-father relationship, you find that girls more so will cling to the mother's responses to them, how they relate to them. Not always, because I'm a father child and I cling to my father. But then you find that the boys, they want that man, they want that roughness, they want that kind of thing. They don't want to feel like a girl. While the girl has the mother there, it's okay for her to feel like a girl with the mother. But the boy with the father, no, I don't want this girly feeling. I don't want to hear my mother's voice. I had a child, and when he drew his family. His father was absent, and the way he drew his mother, this long person, really, I don't know, tall or long, and it was so tall and like just the height of
Yeah.
the person he drew told you that there was something, and he drew himself like a little something. So
In
it was in the,
comparison.
yes, in comparison, and you would have known that
Yeah,
tells a story. He
it
was
does.
like a little bee, to this big elephant, and it brought out the kind of authoritarian kind of, that kind of control. And the research speaks about it, because in the case of especially the boys who are in homes without fathers, the mother tend to be more uninvolved. Why? Because she has to be working, she has to be taking on that extra role, so she become responsibility overwhelmed and all those things. And remember, she's going through her breaking too, she's going through emotional challenges too, she's hurting too, she's hungry too, she has a loss to it depending on what it happens, and she's going through that too. And I would say that the uninvolvement in that context in which I speak, it's really the extent to which the parents' behavior are emotional, and they give that kind of support. They're engaged and they're actively interested in the child's experiencing an activity. So the mother may be interested, but because she has to be paying the rent, she has to be paying the light bill, and the money is not enough because she's not working enough, she has to be swinging 2 jobs and many other things. She's lonely too, and all kind of things. So her kind of parenting sometimes run on a continuum from really warmth acceptance to rejection, hostility. So some children get the warmth and acceptance, but it depends also on the kind of situation, because as we mentioned, there are different reasons why the fathers are not in the home. So the mother's socioeconomic system puts them at risk, and that risk coupled with the emotional state influence the parenting. And we know that negative perceptions of the child's self will lead to things like even suicidal ideation. So when the child is not getting that kind of involvement and feeling less than, feeling abandoned, feeling not wanted, and I could go through all the list, then you know that that child is going to be feeling isolated, withdrawn, and been thinking, the mind is going to be going as a clock and thinking, how can I escape all of this? And the next part of it is a negative control, because the mother wants the boy to behave himself, she's going to be exerting that kind of control, that kind of authoritarian, as I mentioned, kind of control. And that is where the problem is, because it is the extent to which the mother attempts to really guide the child and have the behaviors in control. Now, that is psychologically detrimental, because what happens is that if the levels of involvement is low and the level of control is high, you see where the discrepancy is, and the behavior is going to be exacerbating, and the child is going to be in serious trouble. So the mother is not understanding. She left him at home and she said, okay, go to school. And he probably didn't go to school, or he went to school but did something else wrong. So she put up this kind of rigidity to deal with the boy while the boy is going through a loss. My father is not there. These children need, they're going through grief. It's not just my daddy's not there. They're going through severe emotional challenges, and some of them cannot answer some of the questions that are asked in their minds, by their minds. So they, as I mentioned, and I'm going to repeat it for emphasis, we find that the involvement, and the research study speaks to it, when the involvement is low, not because the mother doesn't want to, but because of the challenges that she has to be going through. She has to be earning and paying attention to the socioeconomic aspect of it. So the involvement gets low, but she increases the control, and that is where the cookie crumbles.
Yeah, so I'm sure that is some person's experience, and others would have experienced the opposite, maybe some amount of neglect, because, she feels like, okay, I shouldn't be doing this alone anyway. So let's hear from Kevin. He's back. We want to hear his experience. What was it like for you growing up with a single mother, Kevin? Tell us a bit more about your story. Kevin? Oh, wow. Okay, so we're having some serious challenges there. All right. Well, hopefully we'll have him back and we can actually hear that story. So in the meantime, listeners, we're discussing, my mother cannot father me. We want to hear from you. So send us your WhatsApp text or voice notes, no longer than 30 seconds, to 876-997-3125. Or you may post on the Love 101 Facebook page or call the studio lines at 876-968-8327 or 8328 to participate. Right. We're also going to encourage you to friend us on Facebook at FLM Family Life Ministries. You may follow us on Instagram at FLMJA and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Family Life Ministries FLMJA. The numbers for Family Life Ministries are 920-1034 or 926-8101. And Kevin is back. So let's hear from you, Kevin. Tell us about your experience growing up with a single mother.
Why technology has its fallibilities. Good thing for me. My mother was very supportive. I spoke before I was kicked off, and she provided the love. I heard the counselor talking about the love. So she never wasn't just strict. She provided the love. So lucky for me, that was there. The balance was there. But of course, I could sense her pain and loneliness with the lack of a father being there. With all her support and the support of the extended family, right? There was a vacuum.
Mhm.
And I realized it when I did a presentation at UTech at CAST then. And after I did the presentation, I got 95%. The lecturer looked at me and said, "Your father must have been proud to see you in your jacket and the tie coming to school this morning." And I felt a little embarrassed, and I had to tell the woman, I didn't go with my father. And I saw on her face a slight disappointment and surprise. And she
Yeah.
said, "Okay, okay." And think another time when I realized that something was missing was when my sister got married. Because my story is that my biological father accepted my sister but didn't accept me.
Mm.
So when my sister was getting married, and my brother-in-law, my sister's husband now, said, "Why your father?" He said something about my father, and I snapped at him. I said, "Not my father. That is not my father. That." And I was a bit ashamed. And he realized, cause he never knew, but he realized I'm just cut the argument. And so even although thank God I have a very good mother, I'm a big up my mother straight. Probably she's not listening. She's overseas. But there's still a vacuum because a woman cannot teach a man to be a man, no matter what. You understand what I say? The challenges were there in terms of the silent shame. I call it a silent shame. But they talk about father, I never know father and so forth. I did well in school, thank God, and grew up in church. And church is a good support system, But they talk about church have imperfect people. School have imperfect people, they still go to school. Right? So that was a good support system. So the silent shame and the no male role model. Right? And but the triumphs were there now. You see youth fellowship and the big brothers in youth fellowship that mentored me. You see the male Sunday school teacher. You see the basketball coach at George's. And being involved in basketball, I was involved in a singing group also that I sang. And it built my confidence. Because like a father's research has shown that children have
Okay. We didn't hear that. We didn't hear that. Those statistics, Kevin, because I guess you're still having internet issues. Maybe we'll have to call him straight. But in the meantime, Angelica, I'm gonna go back to you. Tell us a little bit more on, any findings that you may have, where fathers are missing from the family. What are some of the things that, you would say are critical in terms of what you see happening or what you know of happening to these children? Apart from you mentioned something about education as well as discipline. Tell us more about the emotional. What are they going through?
All right. In terms of emotional, um, the shame and this rejection, and I didn't realize fully that rejection was there until I was in my early 20s,
Mm-hmm.
right? But it was there from a child because I was a late bloomer in a sense, and I wasn't as confident as my sister, right?
Right.
She was the force right one, as they would say, and the talkative one, or upfront one. So I wasn't that confident. My confidence started to build in my late teens, right? So I would say the silent shame and the rejection. And rejection actually had to get prayer for that, deliverance for that. So it was really, really, it came home when I was like early 20s.
Mhm.
So even although I did so well in school, I was a good boy and support my mother and love my mother, and I never wanted to disappoint her. That was one of my motivating factors, to see how she worked hard and love us. Never wanted to disappoint her, but that vacuum was there, right? And it started to build with youth camp, I was talking about, and basketball team and singing group and so on. And somewhere in my early 20s, where it's about emotional. So that little rejection and that vacuum and that silent shame, as I would say, was there. Right? So and you don't make it obvious because you don't want to bring up things and talk about the issue and to make it worse.
Yeah. So what are some of the things that you did to cope, as a youngster growing up without a father and facing the shame and embarrassment and, feeling rejected or neglected? What are some of the things you did, apart from church being a support system for you? What kind of tips can you give to youngsters who may be in the same position as you or similar? What are some of the things you did?
Well, I would say find what I did, right? What I did, and it worked for me. I found something to do that I really like a hobby or a talent and so on. And I didn't even realize how talented I was until church kind of unearthed it and school. Because I started to sing when somebody said, "Come join the youth choir, man, just to make up numbers, even if I can't sing." Going from there, I realized I could sing very well. So I not even did know. Concerning the basketball, it was my buck up. Well, I wouldn't say buck up. They had host competition, so I was on the school team, and they just dragged me in to play Kamatal. And I realized, this one I can do well at it. And then I eventually did well and joined the school team and won championships and so on. So that build your confidence. So being immersed in things like sports and men love war, not real war, but competition or whatever. So in something some positive. It could be a skill, it could be a hobby, it could be sports, it could be engineering, it could be building a car, it could be something that takes your time. So that was like a little escape in a sense. But thank you.
All right. So stay on the line with us. We're going to take a short break. And when we come back, we continue our conversation. And we're going to hear a tribute from Jasmine Walters as well. All right. So it's now 2 minutes to 6. We'll be right back.
Bring the family back. Bring it back together.
Yo, my G. You see my number? Well, duh. Nah, man, me just switch my number to Flow. And got 30 days of unlimited data to do everything, plus a free LTE SIM.
30 days unlimited everything?
Yeah, man, plus there's more. After 30 days, I can activate any plan to continue enjoying unlimited YouTube, social, calls, and text to any network.
We need all of that too.
Yeah, you need to switch to Flow and keep your number. Visit your nearest Flow store today. Conditions apply.
Social media has never been more important. Let Films Creative Agency help you to make an impact. If you want to stay relevant, offer convenience to your customers, and quickly communicate with your target audience, you need to contact Films Creative Agency today at 876-543-6701 or send an email to connect@filmsja.com. Leave a digital footprint that will last.
The world has changed drastically. Are you ready to face it? The University of the West Indies, the Caribbean's #1 university, can get you ready. Because while everyone else is trying to adapt, we are ready to prepare you for what lies ahead. So secure your future by investing in yourself and make your dreams the next big thing with a degree from the UWI Mona. Apply today at mona.uwi.edu.
Bring the family back. Bring the family back. Bring it back together.
My name is Jasmine Walters, and this is a tribute to a royal woman of God, my mother. My mother's name is Tamika Walters. Her name says it all. Talented, angelic, memorable, intelligent, enthusiastic, kind, and amiable. My mother would be classified as a royal woman of God because she thinks about others before herself. She prays for others without praying for herself. She prays without ceasing. She takes care of my sister and I, and she does an excellent job. She is the woman of the house. She is my mother. Sharing, caring, selfless, helpful, educated, and much more. She is the kindest. She has an open heart. She multitasks with school, cooking, helping us with our homework, taking care of us, and so much more. My mother is someone you can depend on. She will never let you down or break a promise. She is a devoted, faithful, trustworthy, reliable, ambitious, compassionate servant of God. She is the best mother in the universe, and I am blessed and lucky to have her as my mother. I love her.
All right, welcome back to Family Time. You've been listening to Family Time on Love 101. It's produced by Family Life Ministries. Have you answered our question as yet? We really want to hear your thoughts on it. As the male with a single mother, how did having a father figure help in your development? Tell us by WhatsApp, by WhatsApp and voice notes. Text and voice notes no longer than 30 seconds to 876-997-3125. Or you may write on our Love 101 Facebook page or call the studio lines at 876-968-8327 or 28 to participate. We're also on Facebook Live and YouTube Live. We want to hear from you. All right, so talk to us. So yes, Kevin, you may continue.
Yes, you were saying, yeah, well, I think I answered the question. You were saying what would you suggest for male boys who don't have a father, how to, what to do. I was saying, you can immerse yourself in some skill, activity, or talent, or some like a sports team or a club or something like that. But the gap was still there. But it helped to build confidence and it created male camaraderie.
So,
and yeah, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Yeah, so I'm a sports lover, and it's not everybody have the talent for sports, I understand, but there's so much sports can teach you in terms of teamwork, in terms of for somebody else, in terms of knowing that your actions affect others, in terms of having one goal to go towards, and the joy of triumph and victory. And even if you don't win, just the joy of the brotherhood, and so on. So it's really helps, and so on. And our confidence is a big thing.
Yeah.
Ego, so confidence and ego is
Definitely, yeah. So, seeing your mother and experiencing your mother as a single parent, what would you say to some of these single mothers out there who have this to deal with? And, maybe they're having children who are giving trouble, so to speak. They don't know how to handle it, What would you say to these mothers?
Well, first of all, I would say, because 9 out of 10 times, or 99 out of 100 times, it's not your fault, right? And so pray hard, first thing, and it's not being stereotypical because family station, God is in control. Pray hard, and be cognizant of the male influence your son is getting, right? So every child is different, whether male or female, but be cognizant of the male influence your child is getting in terms of who is he looking towards, or mimicking, or following, or who is he involved in. So my mother would know my friends from church, know the basketball team who involved in, even know some of the players. So you kind of what is influencing your son. My child is giving trouble. Well, luckily for me, I had good support from the extended family. But practically now, you can search for support, because nothing is wrong with asking for help, whether you're mother, father, child, whatever. Lots of time we don't want to ask for help. Look for help, but you can get support either from and the guidance, the council probably could help you, either from a community group, church, or some other organizations, or so that can help. Don't look for help from here or that. Right? Yeah, that can offer assistance in terms of helping you. So what my mother did, I realized what my mother did. I was really a troublesome child. What my mother did every weekend, for a certain part of her life, our aunt, I have an aunt in I am able to go there for a weekend. So when I came older, I never realized then that it was actually an economic thing. Yeah, let's spend on the weekend.
And it's also for give her probably a little break. Because you know, there are 2 kids, so my aunt is married. So every weekend I actually saw a mother, auntie, and an uncle, a male figure, you know. I was staying every weekend for a good amount of years. And also if some people might not have that support system, so they probably have to look for it elsewhere. If you really need help, don't be afraid to ask for help. Ask a guy that's at the school, what can I do? What can I, whatever. There are support systems there more than we think. Don't sit and think they have to do it alone, right? And things. So that's what would I advise, you know. And last thing, let your child respect you. Whether a mother or father, but even if you know your male child doesn't have a father figure or a male role model, let him respect you as a woman, as a mother. Because I respect my mother to the bone.
Solid. Right. So we have a voice note from one of our listeners. So we're going to play that, and then we have some questions for Angelica.
Yes, family time. Good afternoon. I grew my children without a father. There was always father figures, but I was the one that have to dominate it all, and it was a struggle. And at the time, I was living right in front of a lady who she has the father there. And she always used my children as an example to her children, where I say, look at my children, how they this and how they that. And there was a father. That father was there, but it come like he was not there. Even myself, I have my father. And I was just saying it yesterday, it's just a pity. I didn't have a good father, and I turned to my father in heaven and said, thank you, Daddy, for being a good father. So father can be there and them really not making much sense because they're not doing nothing as a father. There's no relationship, them only brute force and nothing else.
Wow. Yeah. So yeah, that is another thing too, right, Angelica? You have fathers who are present physically but absent emotionally, and
Certainly. Those are not the ones we want to talk about, because that is so sad. And the children, they really go through difficult situations with those as well, because just the man being there and not playing the role, because what the children need is a father role in their lives.
Yeah.
And
Or
sometimes,
just to know that there is a male presence in the house,
yes.
Because like for Kevin, even though he had a really good mother, for whatever reason, not sure if she put her all out because there was no father, but maybe she would have done the same if he was there. But the fact is, he came upon some situations where he was ashamed to say, oh, well, I don't really have a father, or I didn't have a father in the home, But sometimes for persons, even though the father may not be playing that big of a role, to know that, okay, I have a daddy in the home. I don't know.
I said, what I want to say is the reason for the absent father can play a different kind of role in the life of the child and how the child feels, the emotions.
Right.
Because consider a divorce as opposed to a death, as opposed to a situation where daddy just gets mentally ill and or those things. Daddy may be there and he's sick. So you have situations where some children will kind of try to, when I say understand, they can deal with some of it. But then when the father, something like just leave and all of that, the children feel abandoned, just divorce the mother and left her to herself. And then sometimes the child who is left, the boy or the girl who is left behind, they tend to empathize in such a way that they take on the role of the adults. Sometimes the little boys want to take on the role of their missing fathers, and it is just too much for them. And then some of them end up not continuing school and all of that. Kevin mentioned something which is very important: the social network. The social network is key, whether it's going to be church, whether it's going to be extended family, but that must be consistent and genuine. It must not be just because mommy cannot afford some water or a pill or food for the night. The child must feel that love, because if it is the other way around, then you throw the child right back into that state of self-blame, feeling like the child is betrayed, abandoned, unwanted, insignificant, and all those kind of feelings. You also mentioned something that I want to cash in on. be careful, mothers, of who you allow to mentor your children when the fathers are not there, because the boys are going to be gravitating towards male. They need that male kind of interaction in their lives. And most times, those that are ready to pull them in are not the very good ones. So you have to pay attention to that. And the boy will sneak out and try to find friends.
Yes.
Friends.
And males, although Jamaican males, they love females. We actually love each other company. If you look at a male, whether middle age, young man or teenager, although they love the girlfriend and the mother and so on. They spend a lot of time. We spend a lot of time with each other now. Play domino or chat. Sports, about politics, about this, about that. We spend a lot of time. If you have to clock the time, males spend with who they spend more time with the male friends than even the mother and the sister.
Yeah.
That's true. And that's how important it is. Yes.
Yeah. So, Kevin, did you eventually develop a relationship with your father, when you became an adult, or, did you maintain a relationship with a different father figure or what? Tell us a little bit
Unfortunately,
about
he doesn't want to establish a relationship. That was a realization and resignation. I had to come to that. Right, of course, I had to get over the emotional trauma, rejection, and support and thing. And well, I wouldn't say lucky. Sorry for using that word. God is the order. Your steps are ordered by the Lord, right? And prayers not go unanswered. And so, I was saying before I was cut off that earlier that through the church system and youth camp. I remember I told you I was a singer, so I was singing in an a cappella group. Them time in the 90s, a cappella group around the place. I'm singing in a cappella group, and girls scream, everybody, hey, and things. So, right?
So we want to hear something from you before you leave, right?
And Reverend Dr. Dave Hazel, big up to Reverend Hazel, I probably listening now. He's in trouble at camp now. And look at the demographics of that group. I think out of the 6 of us, two of us had fathers, but 1, 2, 3, 4, right, out of the 6, 4 of us never grew with father. Right? The other 2 had father. But one of them parents divorced after a while. So, and we have get peer trouble at camp. We all wet up the whistle. The man we wake up a morning time with the whistle, we wet him up, we do that to do things. And a lot of people say them terrible. And Reverend Hazel just take away and them and just start mold we. Right? A lot of people did say, would you ever support them youth your fan? But he saw the bigger picture. And after youth camp that year, and we were singing and so forth. He started it before, but he immersed us in it after. This thing here, where man just link up and chat. Right? Young men just link up and chat. Him and Reverend Sylvan Hines, link up and chat from different churches, I would just chat. Basically, I would just chat. We pray, of course, have devotion. And the Christmas time come, we have social and invite girls that time there. But no girls allowed. We just chat about every single thing on the face of the earth. From money to relationship to sex to everything. We chat about everything. So it's a comfortable space and so forth. And the girls just get jealous and say, oh, Reverend, they just link up. And so that was help. So I saw a mentor and a father figure in him. At that point, my mother was seeing all what was going on, and she was happy because, she do her 150%. Right? But she knew, and she was the type of mother where cuss the father and him about this. Thank God for that, because ladies don't do that. That makes sense. Cuss the father and I say, what is that? That not gonna help the child, especially your son. Right? So that helped me, right? And even though I was a big man and a father myself, I can't call him no reason and so on. So that was the clincher for me.
Yeah.
Yes.
So the church definitely played a big role in your life, helping you out in that regard. Yeah.
But if I quit the thing, and then I won't get into that because we don't have time, but the whole historical context of families in post-slavery and so on, where they usually beat the male slaves in front of the children, and so all that stuff there, it kind of diminished the role of the man as the protector, as the strength, as the father. So that was the root, and that is even that. But that's another program by itself.
Yeah. So is there anything you would say to your mom now? What would you say to your mom now? Looking back as a child, and now you're grown up. What would you say to your mom now?
I say it to her every time I talk to her. I really appreciate her perfect balance of discipline and love. Because sometimes the best effort, and you can understand the single mother's guide very rough. They're more stress the discipline and not the love. And then some go to the other extreme where them spoil the boy, them appear love, and them not.
Right.
But my mother had a perfect balance of discipline and love. I don't know how she did it. You understand? But trust me, she did it. So I have to say thanks. And she would say to me, boy, God gave her strength. Right? But the thing with her, she grew with a good father too, so she wasn't a vicious cycle, I guess, because she had a good father and mother. So I guess she understands the need for that. So I guess that's why she wasn't perturbed when she see me actually, everything playing out and Kevin a behave a certain way, but yet still so on, and then Dave here's Reverend here's a coming in and so on. So she understand, I guess. So I would say thanks for that skillful balance.
Yeah. All right, I'm gonna throw a question to Angelica now, and you can tell me, Kevin, if you experienced any of that. So tell us, Angelica, what are some of the signs that a male, a son, a child is not coping, a boy child is not coping without the male figure? What are some of the things we can look out for?
Defiance, isolation, anger. That's one of the biggest one. And if it has to do with a school child, you find that truancy is one of the biggest thing. And the child interpersonal relationship is not good, whether with peers or adults, because the child is kind of operating according to the emotional feelings, that is happening, the conflicts that are happening inside. And I said before, we must always remember that the different type of loss of father in the home will have different types of situations. So let's say, for example, the death, a child's father dies. That child will be silent maybe for a while, but afterwards you'll find that the child start to interrelate with others. But for example, a child doesn't know his or her father, or let me say his father at this time, and especially around other boys who knows the boys who know their father, and these boys are looking good, their socioeconomic situation is good, and this child is feeling less than, as if I am nothing, then you're going to find that that kind of behavior is going to come out. And if the mother is not the kind of mother who can discipline in an authoritative way to understand the child and to help the child to move on, then you're going to find some kind of behaviors. Maybe sometimes it turns to the conduct disorder, because that can come out of situations like that. So it makes sense for the parent around to pay attention. So when the child is not listening anymore, although some of these behaviors can be related to just growing up, but that some will be more consistent and they may have started earlier on, depending on whatever stage the child is at. So if you see something not looking good, and the child is having low self, that's another thing, because the child can develop low self-esteem, inferiority, feel that sense of resentment, as if I'm not nothing. And this is when they will try to find like a gang to be with, because in the gang, they're going to big them up and let them feel good. So, we have to be careful of what the child is saying through behaviors. So all the kind of behaviors, emotional ones coming up, as you see it, just look at it. It may not be coming directly from that, but it can be exacerbated by the fact that the child wants his father. Because as I said, being around a mother alone, Kevin was really blessed because he went to his different gender family, and he's from church, that some children do not have that. And there's another part of overprotection. Sometimes because of the father is not there, the mother tend to overprotect, and the child will break out, because overprotection is a psychological kind of control, and the child is already going through emotional stressors. And when the child feels that kind of rigidity, then the child, sometimes boys like to run away. Well, I don't know if it's happening now. I mean, as frequently in the Kingston area, but I know like boys run away. They just go away and stay with other people and all over the place, because they just can't take certain things any longer. When the girls would probably stay there and kind of bear out, boys don't take stress for long, so they find another place. They go to football and they don't come in until 12 o'clock at night. And they stay long wherever they go. If you send them to shop, they go and play football and all of this, because they just want to let themselves go. So Yes, an escape route. So
What
some things
about what about bullying? Is there any relationship between not having a father at home and becoming a bully at school or something?
well, it is possible, and I said it would also depend on the kind of parenting that the child is getting, because most times the bullying come out of the authoritarian kind of behavior, the control kind of thing, as I was mentioning before. When there is low involvement and high control, you'll find that the child is going to be, because with the anger and all of those emotions that are already there, if the child is being parented in that kind of way, anything, and the child is going to be seeing others who seem better than him, and he's going to just try to bring them down, that kind of thing. So it's a myriad of things.
Yeah, thanks. So Kevin, did you at all experience any of these symptoms that
I
Angelica
heard the
just
concept speaking. Isolation and anger was my thing. Sometimes I just like to be by myself, and the anger came out. And right, and there's a friend of mine who he grew with his father, same age, and he always adjourned with me and said, "Lord, I have to control the anger, so on and so forth, so forth." Luckily, it never manifests into other ways, as in crime and so on, because cognizant of consequences, which my mother tried to teach. But isolation and anger was mine. And the council mentioned something, and I have to understand why male father figures are important, whether biological or not, because men are different from women. She just mentioned how girls really think different from boys. Men, whether young or old, we like take ourselves to avoid problems. Yeah, we're gone. We're gone and come back later. We just want to have, so forth. Because then it may reach the other extreme, which is not good, where abuse coming, that's a no-no. Take away yourself, escape, we love escape, either in sports, either with friends or with God. That is true. So you have to understand that male perceives things differently than women. Male communicate differently than women. And as a teacher, I can tell you, males learn different from girls too.
Definitely. Just one more question before we jump to the voice note that we have, Angelica. Do you see a relationship between boys not having their fathers and how they treat women later on?
I really don't have any research power to validate what I'm going to say, but I know that there were some researches earlier on that it relates to the kind of parenting that you get. You exhibit it when you grow up. And in the same way, the kind of parenting that you get, you treat your specific person that way. So if you have a wife, if you have a girlfriend, because the truth is what you know. It is simple. Children will resolve conflict the way they were taught to, whether they were taught openly or covertly. Overtly or covertly. So they are going to do what they know best. So if when they recognize that having a father in the home, is no big thing. When they grow up, maybe as boys, I've heard it. Me never have no father, so she can't deal with that one. Nothing that. The same way with the girlfriend or the wife or whoever is the spouse. My father they left my mother, and my mother deal with it. So that kind of thing. So you find that there is a tendency towards that, but not everybody. Let me claim it, not everybody, because some persons' situations have been mitigated in even before they get to that stage. Let's say Kevin, he got a lot. So therefore, it doesn't mean that because you don't have a father, it must happen. It depends on the kind of treatment that it is treated with and how the child is really valued throughout the period.
Yes, Kevin, I hear you saying something. Go ahead.
Yeah, I agree with her. You live what you learn. Because research such as what I'm about to say, no, a lot of abusive, many times a lot of abusive males had abusive fathers. They saw their mothers being abused. So you mirror what you see. In my case, although I never had a father, I guess by extension the support systems and the extended family I kind of see how wife and husband relate and get an idea. But but one thing that definitely influenced me, which is not necessarily a bad thing, I have no problem with a woman who is a strong woman and who is not leading the household. Ideally, the man must lead. But I have no problem with a woman who leads. And, some males and have problem with, and even some females have problem with female leaders. Because I had a good, strong mother, I got used to a woman can take things and do things. But the bad side of that also is that, as the counselor mentioned, you may say, sure, woman's a strong man, so it's not for the strong man, so sometimes a weak woman annoy me. It's just she need her support. And I never really see the male support emotionally, everywhere, emotionally, financially, whatever. You kind of say, sure, just wise up and strong up and stop our foolishness. You see, so the counselor is right.
Yeah. All right. Let's listen to the voice note from our listener.
Yeah, good afternoon. I'm listening your program and it is so interesting. Sometimes we don't have a uncle nearby we, or we don't have a man figure near we. And sometimes we don't really want to look a man, because sometimes we look a man, sometimes we're afraid of the same abuse what we get for the first baby father. And sometimes the man them are sick, them need help too. And through that them don't be a daddy figure to them children, and the children them hurt for truth. And them not taking up them book, and in the last they end up don't want to study and do nothing at all because they don't have no daddy figure. Sometimes we reach out to the church people them sit down and chat to instead of criticize and really get somebody if he really come and to be a daddy figure. So that's why the children them, especially the boy people them behave like that and end up don't have no education, don't have a daddy figure beside them, don't have an uncle, nor no one figure. Because some of the mother them just afraid of a next man again with abuse and hurting one another. Sometimes some mother will talk about our next man, yes, but them run around, and some women don't want that, so they don't really look at next man. So Jamaica need to, when we cry out for help for boy pitney, we need somebody to put out effort at that time. Can not for the time we cry out for help for boy, just a daddy figure for my child, go counsel and what I just want one time, and next time
Yeah, we want to thank that listener for her voice note. Yeah, true words. I'm sure there are some persons who can definitely relate, right? But in about 20 seconds, Angelica, can you tell us, are there any solutions to this problem? What are some of the ways we can prevent these things from happening?
Certainly they are, but will people really buy into them? Because first of all, there are some things that you can't avoid, like the loss, like if a father dies and all of that. But then some of them can be prevented. An extramarital affair, that when the child is born, you can't even say a word, you can't tell the child. That hurts, I've had situations where even when the child died, when the father died, the child knew that he was the father, but because of he had another family before she came on stream. And when the father died, she could not even go to the funeral because at that time silence is still on. And that thing hurt that child. It affects her so badly. Every aspect of health was affected. And it wasn't an easy task to get her, back to think, reframe our thoughts, because she knew the reality. So the point I am making here is things can be done, and it starts from the root. Mothers who, if you're not mothers yet, pay attention. We are not saying that you're going to know if I'm going to leave or stay, but do the best you can. Yes. And so another part that I think it is growing is that some mothers are saying, get out of my life, get out of my child's life. If the man is out of your life, he should not be out of the child's life. So when you allow him to be out of the child's life, unless it's a case of abuse or legal thing like that, but not because he breaks up with you, it means that you should allow him to be breaking up with the child. At the end of the day, the child is going to take it back out on you because the child is really, really angry. So when you see the child want to commit suicide, think about it if you have already taking the child from that
Yes,
father.
yes.
Yes,
I'm so sorry, but we're going to have to break it right here, Angelica. Those are very, very valuable words. And we may have to continue this conversation another time because it's really, really important, especially here in Jamaica, right? So at Family Life Ministries, remember, if you have any challenges at all and you need someone to talk to, call us at 876-920-1034 or 926-8101. Just before you go, here's our Bible verse for today, Proverbs 1, verse 8 to 9. Listen, my son, to your father's instruction, and do not forsake your mother's teaching. They are a garland to grace your head and a chain to adorn your neck. I'm Halcyon Reid. Join us again next week at 5:30 on Love 101. Thank you for being here, and thanks to our guests, Angelica Dalrymple and Kevin Gordon, and as well as our show producer, Kathy Gale. And thanks to our studio facilitator, Neeson Williams. And of course, to you, our guests. Stay safe and be blessed.